to everyone who's joining today. If you've got any questions, just write them down in the chat. And a question to all of you who just presented. There's a trend right now that the circular economy seems to be an area that's rather been occupied by large companies. How do you, with your organizations, with your projects, make sure that it stays or becomes also a bottom-up process and also involves citizens and not so large players? Yeah, just go.
I think stakeholder engagement is one of the biggest things we have to look at, because each different stakeholder group, if you're looking at industry versus the public sector, they all have their own sort of aspect. How can you work on this? But if you can't open up for this inclusive solution that can bring together, citizen knowledge, the grassroots initiatives, we're running into problems there. And so one of the really interesting things, I'm glad someone's posted Jacqueline Kramer's book on network governance. I remember reading up on Circular Berlin's governance. There's a great Git book there explaining how it all works out. And I think that hubs need to be able to establish their governance and have transparency in that process, so that if you are a stakeholder who wants to be involved, you can understand how you can do so. And I think right now that's what's going to open up to allow us to work with industry.
Maybe also on the top of my head. So what we are doing is basically also enabling this bottom-up circular economy and putting visibility on circular startups, pioneers, individuals, and so on. But also what is important is to recognize that actually the big players, the big actors, they wouldn't be able to move that fast if the startups weren't there. Or for a lot of cases we have, it's actually starting with the startups putting into place something that the big corporates actually says, okay, we're going to pilot this solution in our company, and through this we have a partnership that is created, and then this product is integrated in the big corporation. But most of these innovations are from what I've seen, it also starts with startups, with grassroots communities. And I mean, the basic example of zero waste shops, I mean, this was 10 years ago, it was like, what are these hippies putting in place a zero waste shop at the corner? And now we have in Switzerland Migros, one of the biggest supermarket that is actually having some corners of zero waste, and also in France and in many countries. And I think this starts through grassrooted initiatives. So it's important to tell it and to show it every time that it happens like this.
Would you like to add something? Oh yeah, Dina just unmuted herself.
Yeah, I just want to add as well. I think we had a recently discussion with one of the members about that actually, if you're a big company, you can do this many steps what startups now are trying, just like that, just start investing money and that's it. And nevertheless, I think it's a big challenge, especially if the big companies started doing it on the question of the data and changing the business model. I would say, for example, if we move towards such business models as instead of owning, we renting, and for example, or there is for the material passports at the model. If the big companies just start doing them, they become the fast owner of this data, which I think question the circular economy openness in this case, quite directly. And I think this is actually also why it's so important to bring society into the discussion right now, because for them, it's the people who should decide how this business model should be adopted and how they actually can impact the future economy in this case. And I think this is where in Germany or in Berlin recently there was also new definition started, like circular society. We had the first forum in February, where I think it's on the one hand sounded like, okay, it's something which is a new definition. There is circular economy, circular city, circular society. But on the other hand, it was, I think it was a very important mission behind that, to say, okay, we really need to ask our people how these business models, which we are now scaling up so fast and giving this, trying to push the transition to them, we need people also to understand them, because the transformation in the economy is faster than people actually can catch up on the whole this transformation. And that can have, it can have specific negative impact on the future if we will not catch up with our society. So that's the reason I think also why it's very important to consider it.
Would you like to add something, Sandra?
No, I think a lot of things are said on this, and so yeah, I can add some, but it's mostly about this collaboration and involving everyone, and that's yeah, also included on the topic you're talking about now. It's so, because it is a full system change. It's so important that everyone comes along. It's yeah, it's not one party involved.
Yeah, thank you. The follow-up question for this would be, considering how you have established the circular economy hubs where you are located, what would be your advice to someone aiming to set up a circular economy in a different place? What were your learnings, and which challenges did you overcome maybe, and how?
I would say don't try to do it alone. Look at the best practice that's out there. If you're able to collaborate with other hubs to not have to reinvent the wheel, set up websites, look at how you're going to develop case studies, for example. We need a shared digital infrastructure and resources that can help hubs evolve. How can we identify the different governance models? If you look at Circular Berlin being a sort of a member-based NGO, you look at what's happening with Circular Glasgow, and that's the Chamber of Commerce, looking at how do we get business and industry moving forward. They can come from so many different stakeholders. Identify the format that you want, and look at the most inclusive solution you can, and find people to help you. And we'll gladly help anyone who wants to start up. We have a lot of learnings there. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also add to that, because I came across Cynthia's platform recently when it was launched. I was very, very positively surprised about it, that this popped up. We met in 2019, right, on the Circular Economy World Forum, because I do think, for me, for example, for us in Circular Berlin, it would be a great enabler to cooperate through the joint tech infrastructure. In this case, because we do harvest all the information right now locally, we do search by ourselves and trying to enable the community. And I think there are so many learnings could be also for the community outside there, where I do think it's really important to have also this joint forces towards how would be the best and the most efficient way to enable the community. I think it's a great advice to collaborate on that before starting to do it by yourself.
Yeah, maybe if I can add to that, I think it's also essential to look at the front runners in a region and in a country, because circular economy, it is happening everywhere. And it's not everywhere as developed, but that's also why we collaborate. But yeah, look at the front runners and indeed just talk with them, like Cynthia and Dina also said. Just start a conversation and see how you can start and learn from others, because it happens on so many places. You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, and maybe I would touch upon the funding part, because maybe for us, when we were privileged because we have a foundation that supports most of the initiative, but still we were incentivized to always do more fundraising and find other partners to co-create projects and so on. But one thing we underestimate is actually the power of the community that want to be involved and also do things by themselves. And we always thought, okay, no, this cannot be, like, we cannot use kind of the community. But finally, we are now, through these circles, these bottom-up projects, we are finding that this is actually a super big power. And I think Circular Berlin, you probably work more in this way, but for us it was very difficult at the beginning to think of building our program based on volunteers. And now we are seeing that actually there are so much demand of people wanting to be engaged, wanting to contribute to something, even in a short term, like for a month, for a workshop, for something. And actually we have great tools to share about what they are doing and so on. And I would definitely, I would recommend, if building a hub, to count on this collectivity and the will of power to do the change together.
That's very interesting to know, learning for me as well, that you mentioned, Laurène, because I didn't know that you also chip into this network of I call them change makers, because for me it's so much inspiration from all the people who actually want to support and want to contribute. It's true, though, for Circular Berlin, we do work with a lot of power of volunteers in our work, even though I see from specific time, it has to be balanced. So you really need to balance out the work of volunteers with actually real work, just because we talk about economy, and the economy should also work in an economic way. And this is, but I agree with you. Thanks for highlighting that. I think it's really important to chip into the local community and saying, hey guys, we want also that you help us, because it's also could be mutual progress.
I'm just checking if there are any questions in the chat. If you've got any questions to pose to our speakers, just still feel free to write them down. One question that was posed a bit earlier today was from Mike, and he's asking, what is your experience in establishing a material flow analysis for your area? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Did you actually do it?
Very easy for us. No, we have another organization in Switzerland called Circularity, or it's from ECOS, the big organization, but they have one program called Circularity, and they are doing these material flow analysis. And from the beginning, we could have these for our different cities. So pretty easy.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I wrote Mike on that, because we actually struggle quite a lot with this topic, even though from the very beginning we set it up as that topic, what we want to do, but then we really realized quite quickly that even though in Berlin there is output, so in terms of waste, there is analysis on a city level, but there is no input in terms of what is actually materials and products coming in. And to make the assessment, in this case, we really understood there's capacity missing right now, and we are still, so I maybe need to check what is there in Switzerland again.
One of the things that we noticed when we were working with the OECD at their policy seminar, one of the big discussions with all the stakeholders that were involved, and there was I think over 120 stakeholders invited to that event, was the debate of what are the priorities. Do you prioritize material flow analysis? Do you prioritize mapping what's already happening? How do you enable that? And there was a big discussion there, because a lot of people seem to think material flow analysis is your first step. But identifying what's already happening, and in that process, also identifying each of those initiatives, what are the secondary materials that are coming in, and what are the secondary circular products that they're actually producing from these, is what's going to start giving us the recipe. And those are some of the data points in our case studies. Because once we start replicating that, we're able to then network organizations. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing the recipes evolving.
Yeah, I think for us, we of course, we mostly work on the internationalization of circular economy. So, but we do also make like this brochures on topics where we mostly just indeed show what is going on. So we don't make the full flows, but we show like what kind of entrepreneurs are already working on it, and everywhere in the step of the chain, what can already happen. But that's also because we mostly work on the internationalization. And, yeah.
I think there was an add-on from Mike in this case. If there's actually, Cynthia, what you say, it's not mutually exclusive. What is first, what is second? I mean, either it's material flow or...
I think that there's definitely going to be different priorities based on where things are starting and what the priorities are of the stakeholders pushing something. But I think that what we are going to see that's going to be really interesting is how can you take these smaller initiatives and network them by connecting all of these hubs and sharing our data. One example I often talk about is here in Oslo, we have Gruten, fantastic social enterprise. I'm sure you've heard of similar solutions where she collects the coffee grounds from all of the cafes and she creates mushrooms and different other solutions. There are 6 of those that I know of in Europe, and they aren't networked right now. They aren't sharing their business model, their best practice, their branding, their social media. How can they do this better by working together? Because they won't be competing. And these are business models that can work and share everything going forward. So I think we need to be able to look at what's happening, network, replicate, and scale.
Thank you. One last question from the community chat. In your opinion, from your observation, what is the role of linear business models or linear businesses that are currently in place already? Do they rather hinder the transition to a circular economy, or as Sandra mentioned, could they be transition brokers?
One of the things that we've seen is if you're a startup, you can have a circular model. But if you are a traditional business, you don't just become circular tomorrow. You have to look at what's happening from your materials segment, what's happening with logistics, what's happening with your waste streams. And by looking at the multiple models you can put into place, you can start transitioning in that direction and collaborating with others to make you scale that impact and not just create these small pilots. That's one of the big problems, is tiny pilots that aren't actually scaling. But I think that it's by looking at all aspects of your business that we can start moving that transition over.
I think I had also my personal transition with regards to the linear business models and their current role, because initially I thought, okay, we don't have actually time to explain every business that it's time to change, because I think it's so clear in one or another way, and I thought it's like this time will be the time will run out from them, that they will be moved from the business sooner or later if they will not start the transition, because new generation of business is coming. So for me, it was like the dying dinosaurs in one or another way, and I thought, okay, maybe it's not they have the resources to make this transition. They have the manpower to make this transition. They have actual knowledge to make this transition, and if they don't do it, there is a question behind that. So I see, however, right now, because I contradicted myself from this view, but also from perspective, like I see collaboration still the core, and in this case, still avoiding them and actually not taking them into consideration. I think it's a very short-minded view, and that's where I was criticized myself for this thoughts in the beginning, because I still think that even like if I look on the big players who are in the linear economy, and I think, okay, the people who are involved in the businesses, they actually, I mean, people are making the business, and they are also seeing that there is need to change. Maybe it's still not on the top of the company, but also already employees seeing that, okay, that change has to come. And I think this push internally and externally is really, I mean, that's where we need to come in place and push externally for this transformation. And this is something which is really important in this case to scale up this transition. It's just a question how it should be done, how to make sure that it's not greenwashing.
Yeah, I can only agree with Dina. I think I also have my self-transition. Maybe I'm even more at the beginning, and my activistic heart is often talking and saying, no, is this one I really don't want to partner. But to be honest, if you look at all the companies worldwide, there are just very, very, very few that are really circular or fully circular. I could name only smaller organizations. So I think in every big organization, you can find a person, a department, and someone that wants to make a change from inside. And these persons you need to catch, or departments, and you need to kind of work with them. But still, I think that some companies that don't put clear goals or targets regarding climate and circular economy at the moment, I hope that they will be soon out of the market, and I don't want to spend too much time to explain why it is important to do this transition. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also if people don't want to move, they'll see it themselves at some point. So why put all our energy in maybe bigger companies that are not ready yet? Well, there's a lot of others that are ready and that are willing to transition and are working on it. So I think it's more focusing on the people, more these coalitions of the willing I mentioned earlier, and work with them, and then the rest will follow, or they'll go away. It's yeah.
I think we're also going to see that consumer demand and policy creating sort of the public procurement has to be circular. We need to get sort of the barriers and the enablers established and say, all right, these policies are going to trigger this move. And that will just eliminate the dinosaurs at the end of the day.
I think these were beautiful last words or closing words for today's panel discussion. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you very much for giving us your time, sharing your expertise. And for the final words, I'm going to hand over again to Dina.
Yes, thanks a lot for this session. Maybe just give 5 seconds time if somebody else wants to ask some question or to express some last thoughts or some last learnings. Please now go ahead. Maybe I will first give the floor to our speakers if you want to say some closing remarks and recommendations for the future work.
I just want to say that if anyone out there wants help, contact us. We're going to be developing a learning network to say, how can we do this together? And so the door is always open.
Yeah, I'd like to look at all the information that is already there, because there is a lot indeed, and on the website you've shown today. And then indeed, if you have any more questions, just contact any of us, I think.
I missed the question because I was writing in the chat, but the question was, what do we wish for the future? Or
your last remarks, and what do you wish for the future?
Last remarks. No, I would have been glad actually to hear more about the participants, but I know it's always difficult in such a time frame. I'm super glad that you organized this, so thank you, Circular Berlin. And yeah, I really hope we can stay in contact. So maybe establishing some sort of communication channel also to share about our achievements. And I really hope to see you in the future. And I'm also posting in the chat on our website, so don't hesitate to contact me also if you have something.
Yes, on that matter, I then take over and say thank you very much for joining us. At the end, everyone who registered and everybody who participated here will receive also summary of our session with a link to the video recording and presentations and contact information of our speakers. In general, in order to make sure that you also stay in touch with the Circular Berlin, so there are several opportunities to do that. You can do it either in an easy way, just follow us on social media, a little bit more complicated way, you can subscribe to our newsletter and we will inform you about all our events and all possible opportunities, what we do as well on a monthly basis. And if you really want to be very close with our work, you can become our member. We always very inspired by everyone who join us. And in this case, after this event, around in a week probably, you will also receive a link to survey how you liked our event, and that you can give us maybe some recommendations and some other future wishes. And I will really appreciate if you will take 2 minutes time afterwards to fill it in. And on that case, I will close the session. If somebody still have to say something or share also from the participants, please go ahead. I will keep right now the Zoom still open, and if there is something to share, please go ahead, or you have some direct questions.
I just want to say thanks for arranging this. It's been fantastic. I'm really pleased to be here.
Same here.
Yeah, thank you for organizing.
Bye.